Back for another brew day. This time, Biggie Juice Clone.
Juice.
Excited about this one. So in this video, we're going to run through the full brew day, grain to glass style. We're going to be speaking to Steward Allen, who's going to run through the recipe and the inspiration for the clone recipe in Brewfather. And then we're going to jump across to the brew day. We're going to run you through each kind of stage of the brew day. Then we're going to come back to to taste the beer at the end. So most craft beer lovers in Western Australia and Australia know what Biggie Juice is, right? So
They should.
They should, absolutely. If it's not the best, it's certainly the first, right? It's East Coast IPA, accessible, very, very well priced. And
easy to find.
Easy to find, absolutely. So Feral Brewery created Biggie Juice back in 2017. Feral Brewery are a brewery on our back doorstep, right? It's in Western Australia, out in the Swan Valley region. They have a brew pub out there, and they also have a bigger brewery where they mass produce like Biggie Juice and others out there. So we're excited to get this one in the keg and in the glass, most importantly. So before we get started, on this channel, we do lots of video content. We do brew days, grain to glass style, clones, original recipes. We do how-to videos. We speak to breweries. We talk about beer style. So if you like this type of content, please consider subscribing, liking, and giving us some feedback on the video. We want to do more videos like this, and having those subscriptions there would help us kind of encourage us to do that. So would appreciate that. So today we're joined by Steward Allen. He's well known on the Perth brew scene, home brew scene, for his clone recipes. He's done a few, right?
He's done a few, he told us, yeah.
Yep. So hopefully this won't be the last time we have him on. We're super thankful for him sharing the recipe with us and the public, right? And for popping around, spending the day with us and making sure we didn't mess up his clone recipe before we tasted it. So thank you again. So let's jump into Brewfather for the recipe, and then again we'll run through the brew day and come back at the end for a tasting.
See you later.
Okay, so we're lucky to have Stewart here with us today. He's going to run us through the recipe. So can you run us through it?
Yeah, sure. So it's a pretty straightforward, probably fairly straightforward NEIPA recipe. The grain bill's pretty generic. Apparently when Feral designed the recipe originally, this is their original attempt. They didn't tweak the recipe much from their first attempt. So I figured it's going to be a fairly generic grain bill, so I went with a fairly standard 80% base malt, 10% flaked oats, and 10% wheat, which seems like a fairly standard recipe. And then just a little bit of crystal malt for colour.
Nice.
So that was the grain bills, pretty straightforward.
Hops?
Hopping wise, the hops are all available. Feral disclosed what hops are in the beer, so it was pretty easy to figure that part out. But then the question comes, how much of each hop and what sort of ratios? And again, I went with a fairly generic 1-to-1-to-1 for the three hops, being Galaxy, Amarillo, and Vic Secret. And that seemed to come out pretty good in the first run through. The second, but based on the first taste testing in version 1, we dropped the IBUs a little bit and tweaked the Vic Secret down a little bit. So the ratios aren't quite 1-to-1-to-1, but pretty close to that. And as with most NEIPAs, is a traditional sort of early high Kreuzen biotransformation dry hop, which is most of the hopping, and then later on towards the tail end of fermentation, a smaller dry hop, which just includes Galaxy and Amarillo.
So around 1.020 for the kind of second hop?
Around about would be reasonable, yeah. So you want some fermentation activity, but you want sort of most of the work to be done, I think, yeah.
Okay, so from a, there's no pressure fermenting, you're just kind of letting it kind of blow off and then you're kind of trying to maybe introduce some pressure towards the end of the fermentation, is that right?
Yeah, I think if you've got the pressure fermentation ability, I probably wouldn't pressure ferment early because I think the yeast esters probably play a bit of a role in the beer. So I think you want some of those yeast esters, but towards the end, probably capturing some of that aroma if you're going to seal up the fermenter and develop a bit of carbonation and develop some, help to minimise the sort of cold side oxidation that might otherwise occur. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so from a yeast perspective, WLP 008 starter.
Yeah, I think always starter is always good. Probably, obviously, depending on your batch size, a nice active starter, or you can pre-do it and cold crash it. But I think, and in terms of the yeast selection for this one, it was a shot in the dark. I really had no idea, but I figured it was going to be one of these ones that has a slightly tart finish because I get that from Biggie. So I think this yeast kind of fits that bill. I think other NEIPA yeast would probably be fine too, I really have no idea what they're using, but this seems to do the job. Okay,
so you mentioned you've got Brewtane B in here. That's necessary or kind of?
Totally optional. I have it. I've played around with it. I don't know that it really necessarily adds that much to beer, but to me it's cheap insurance. I've got it. I'll use it. When I run out, probably won't buy more. Okay, so before we jump into the mash profile and the fermentation profile here, the water profile, how did you get to that? Again, fairly generic. NEIPAs seem to have tend to favour chloride over sulphate. reasonable calcium around 50, and then sort of a 2-to-1 chloride to sulfate ratio is pretty standard. And again, I just kind of tried to get inside the brewer's head and figure what would they do for their first attempt.
Yep.
They're probably going to go, straight down the middle.
Yep.
This is what a NEIPA kind of looks like, and then presumably they were planning to tweak it from there, but apparently they didn't. So,
so on the mash profile, so 68.5 degrees, 40 minutes, 20, anything to...
just because I took a sample of actual Biggie Juice, measured the final gravity with a hydrometer. It turns out it's 1014. The original gravity is 1060 from the website. So I just figured that, I didn't have a lot of experience with that yeast. It's moderately attenuative, so I wanted to mash somewhat high to maintain some body, and I didn't want it drying out too much.
Nice.
I didn't want it finishing down at 1010.
Okay, fermentation profile, 4 days, 10 days, 30 days conditioning. The 30 days conditioning part.
I'd say that's literally just a software default. I didn't change that.
Okay.
So that's not me. So I'd normally start this around, I think, again, you want some yeast esters, so I'd probably start this about 19, hold it there for a couple of days, and then push it up to like 21, 22 to get attenuation after. And I find this yeast is pretty aggressive, so it was done within 8 to 9 days.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, so pretty straightforward from the, adding the salts. It's worthwhile noting for this batch, starting off with RO water. And I think that's it. I mean, appreciate you coming to brew with us.
No worries.
We're going to go to some clips now of the brew day, and then we'll come back at the end for a taste test.
Sweet.
Okay, so pretty easy brew day. Adding the salts here in the mash as well as the sparge as per the recipe. Mashing, no problems there, no dough balls, no problems with efficiency or anything like that.
Just make sure you add a little bit and then give it a stir, a little bit and stir.
Yep. There's the mash pH. So let it sit there for about 20 minutes, then took the wort out, kind of cooled it down to 24-ish degrees, and got a mash pH of 5.25. Worthwhile mentioning that we added less phosphoric acid than Brewfather suggested. This is the first gravity reading here. I believe we hit the numbers, 1051,
1051.
Something like that. And then the hop addition, brought up to boil, first and only hop addition, 14 grams of Warrior, and then let it boil for an hour. And there's it's not so clear there, but the second post-boil gravity reading of 1061, I believe.
1060, 61.
Something like that, yeah. So there's the cooling method. So an esky full of ice, just kind of pumping that water through the immersion chiller and out again. There's Stewart lending his hand to give a vigorous stir. And then he's also doing the honours there to add the yeast. And it didn't take long for that to kind of kick off. And this video here is just because who doesn't like to watch wort ferment? So here's the second dry hop actually, which we done at 10:20. First dry hop was done at 10:30, just purging out the oxygen here, trying to limit the oxygen, and then the dry hop was pretty successful. We could see the hops buzzing around in solution. Last, obviously, an enclosed transfer from the keg from the fermentation to the keg. We've done a video on an enclosed transfer, which is above this video. Going across to the fermentation profile, it finished quicker than what we anticipated. Actually, you can see here. On about day 4, I started to kind of introduce some very mild pressure, just 1 psi at the start, kind of moving that up gradually to 3 psi or something like that. The temperature started off at 19 degrees and we ended up at about 20. Didn't need to raise it any further to get that full attenuation. So I guess that's it for that. Now all that's left to do, I guess, is to taste the beer. Okay, looking forward to this one. Colour looks good.
Yeah, nice color, hazy.
Okay, cheers.
Cheers, Stewart.
Cheers, Stewart. Thank you very much. I think the colour looks pretty bang on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Should we give it a smell?
Yes. Without having a can side by side.
Yep.
We're gonna do a side by side.
We've got a can in the fridge. Okay. So after we do this test, we'll do a side by side.
Yeah, without having the beer side by side, you can pretty much say it's Biggie Juice.
Yeah, I smell Biggie. I had a little taste even the foam before, and I tasted Biggie.
Yeah. So basically, if you go to someone's house, bring a bottle and say, "Oh, I was at the Swan Valley. I picked
growler,
up a
growler.
Bring a growler." Said, "Oh, I was in Swan Valley. Brought a growler." They said, "Oh, nice, thank you." Big juice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on the smell Smells good. Let's give it
It's
a taste.
it's actually a little bit fresher than when you buy cans, right?
Yeah.
Because this one, it's been in the keg for like less than a week.
Just less than a week, maybe 6 days now. Yeah.
Mm. It's pretty good, man. Bang on.
Yeah, I drink. Biggie Juice is something that we talked about it previously. It's something that I always have a 4-pack ish also, and it's good staple beer, and I feel like I've got a good handle of the taste, and I think it's pretty bang on.
So it's smooth. There's no bitterness. There's a little bit, but
Tiny bit.
very very minor, just like Big Juice. It's fruity, juicy.
Well, that's a good beer.
Not much to say. Yeah, it's just perfect.
No, and you should definitely give this a try. After we finish this, maybe we'll do a side by side and compare the two, and we'll be right back. Okay, so you can see 2 beers here. The ones that are already poured are the clones. We've got a can of Biggie Juice that we can kind of do a side by side. It's worthwhile mentioning while Raphael pours it is that in the future we're going to do a bit more in-depth kind of blind tasting review with the clone and the Biggie Juice, some triangle tests and so on. But for now, we're just going to kind of put them side by side, compare, have a look at the colour, the haziness, the aroma, and a little bit about the taste. So, what's your first impressions, Raphael?
I think the Big Juice here seems to be slightly more clear.
Yep.
Whereas the clone looks to be a little bit more hazy. I'm not sure if you can tell the difference. It's very very similar, but the clone seems to be slightly darker.
It's a little bit darker, isn't it?
Very very minimal. Like I said, if you don't have side by side, you can't tell. And then the head is quite similar as well. Actually, the clone seems to be a little bit more. How can I say? A little bit finer, whereas the original one has a little big bubbles. It's pretty hard to focus, but can you see the difference here?
Yeah,
so that's
yeah.
very fluffy.
Yep.
This one has a little bit like bigger bubbles. Yeah, let's just try to smell.
Okay, so in the right hand we have the Biggie Juice. In the left hand we have the clone. So let's.
Yeah, so side by side you can tell a little difference. This one.
It's small though, right?
Yeah, very.
Okay.
I think this one has a little bit more. The Big Juice has a little bit more mango.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the clone is slightly more citrusy.
Yes, yeah. I think now that you say it, it's hard for me to pick. They're quite close. There's a very mild kind of aroma difference, I guess, with the actual Biggie Juice, but it's minor. I'm deciding which one to drink.
Okay, so I think the clone is a little bit more juicy actually. I'm not sure how fresh this can is.
Yep.
It's 9th of April, so it's a month.
It's best before.
Yeah, well, you give.
Oh yeah. Cool. I mean, well, I think we should park that there because I think this video or this deserves a bit more of an in-depth kind of video where we do triangle tests and blind tests and so on. So, but I think it's close, right? There's minor differences, but I think he's bang on with the recipe there. So let's leave it there. We really appreciate Stewart popping around. Thanks very much, Stewart. It won't be the last one. We'll do some more of these type of videos, another clone recipe, and hopefully with other brewers around Perth. Clone recipes, originals, and so on. So with every video, we really appreciate if you consider subscribing to the channel. We do, like we said at the start of the video, we're going to be doing more clone recipes, original recipes. Brewery interviews, how-to videos, talking about all things style and all things beer. So we appreciate that if you consider subscribing, that'll help us encourage us to do more of these videos. So thank you very much for watching, and until the next time, cheers.